Welcome to the Sports Note for Friday, December 20th. Hope everyone's getting ready for the holidays coming up next week. But if you're a college football fan, your holidays have already started, and that's, not to, copyright the sponsorship, but Capital One Bowl Week has already started with all the ESPN networks. We've already seen a couple of good ones with UNLV and Cal. We actually saw Memphis have to hold on late in their game back on Tuesday. But one of the more interesting bowl games, on paper at least, is one that actually was in the process of getting canceled, and that's coming up next Saturday, and that's the Independence Bowl between Louisiana Tech and Army. Now, this is not part of the college football playoff, which actually starts tonight, ironically enough, with a first-round matchup between Indiana and Notre Dame, and then the other three matchups will take place tomorrow at the time of this recording. But the Independence Bowl was originally supposed to be Army against the champions of the Sun Belt Conference, the Marshall Thundering Herd. Marshall actually ended up pulling out of this game early on December 8th because it was announced that head coach Charles Huff was leaving Marshall and then taking the same job over at Southern Miss. And in the immediate aftermath of that, 36 Marshall players, 29 of them on scholarship, entered the NCAA transfer portal. And the problem with the college football transfer portal is that it's only open between December 9th and the 25th, and I might be off on that first day, but and it's not the 25th. I want to say it's the 8th through the 28th, so it doesn't leave teams a whole lot of wiggle room there. We actually saw, as notable as last year, where Ohio State starting quarterback ended up going in, announcing he was going to transfer after Michigan beat Ohio State again, and then goes to Syracuse, watches Syracuse get stopped in their bowl game, and Ohio State basically sees several starters opt out of playing in the bowl game altogether and get beat by Missouri. We saw a whole bunch of Florida State players opt out, but not so much enter the transfer portal. After they were slighted by the committee after going undefeated and winning the ACC but getting left out of the college football playoff. This is actually something that we've never seen before, but unfortunately may likely end up starting to see again, and with a lot more routine in the coming years. But for 36 out of up to 85 players opting into the portal. And if you look at the first two tiers of Marshall's depth chart, so that gives you 44 players between offense and defense, 17 of those players ended up opting out and going into the portal, including all three of their quarterbacks, which also included starting quarterback Braylon Braxton, who was named the Sun Belt Newcomer of the Year after throwing 19 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. And this is also ending Marshall's season with a 10-3 record after winning 7 games in a row. And now for a program who had such promise kind of going into 2025, you have to think that this is going to be something where this much turnover and a new head coach, I'm not going to say it's going to be on the level of what we saw in Colorado with all of those players, coming in and out, with Deion Sanders, his head coaching, Colorado nearly getting to the playoff this year, losing out on the Big 12 championship game in a tiebreaker. Would have gotten stopped in the first round anyway, but that's beside the point. But Marshall actually, to win a conference championship and not go to a bowl game as a double-digit win team is amazing, because I need to kind of go back through the history books to see when the last time something like this happened where the school was not on probation or NCAA sanction with a postseason ban. For a team winning their conference, winning double digits, and not playing in a postseason bowl. It's highly unprecedented, and this is the monster that the NCAA has created now. They've essentially turned themselves, and I've been highly critical of the NIL, and also all of this conference realignment bullshit. Let's call it what it is. But this is now an instance where the NCAA has now let the inmates completely run the asylum, and I'm not sure if they can come back from this. There's going to be sweeping regulations likely coming, with the transfer portal, with the NIL. You might actually end up seeing some form of a salary cap, which we know is going to end up getting tied up in litigation. But at least the good news is that with something like this, with college, where the names can change really every 4 years, or even really every year, as those players maybe jump to the pros. Or I'm going to come back to somebody here in a moment, who's actually going to be making more money after they leave school than they currently are now, and it's quite a bit of money. But you're going to see possibly a salary cap. You're going to see definitely adjusted dates for the portal. Now, the 12 teams that are in the playoff right now, they have an additional 5 days after their season ends to extend the portal. So whomever gets to the college football championship game in mid-January, we're going to be talking upwards of maybe the third week in January for those players to be eligible to be able to play for a national championship, and then possibly transfer if they haven't graduated themselves. SMU, who's in the playoff tomorrow night, their head coach was extremely critical of this as well, and Rhett Lashley indicated that you got to feel that he's kind of tired of seeing players do so much during the regular season only to opt out before the bowl game. And the transfer portal is certainly messed up in his mind, because also they're playing Penn State, so SMU has got to go to Happy Valley, and Penn State's backup quarterback already entered the transfer portal. Bo Pribilla. So if something happens to Penn State starting quarterback tomorrow night against SMU, they've got to go to a third stringer. So they're going to have to elevate somebody up, because now they don't have him available. We saw it with Ohio State, to where they actually had to go out and bring Will Howard in as a transfer from Kansas State. And Ohio State, with 2 losses during the regular season, really named the last time that happened. But we talk about how the NCAA has no loyalty towards these programs and these players. Well, they've now given the schools the right to basically jump in or line conferences, to where we've now got 4 super conferences, and everybody else be damned. And it's really all set up for college football. Now, college basketball, college baseball, college gymnastics, college tennis, and everything, it's certainly going to make some of those conferences stronger, but you've also got a lot more teams advancing into postseason play, whereas you got a pool of 138 or 140 that you've got to filter down to 12 at that point, and you're still having upwards of 30 to 40 more programs get into bowl games once they hit 6 wins, which is bowl eligible. And and so they've given them the opportunity, but they never really did anything to protect the players. Now they open up the players to the NIL, and you actually have certain athletes like famed LSU gymnast Livy Dunn making $4 million excuse me, reportedly last year, which actually was multiple times the amount that her boyfriend made in his rookie Major League Baseball contract, and we all know that that's Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher and National League Rookie of the Year, Paul Skeens. Now, Skeens made $740,000 last year. He got a $9.2 million signing bonus, but done really since NIL opened up just a few years ago, has already made over $7 million in capital. She's now featured in, I can't remember if it's Lululemon. It might very well be. She might be in she might be getting sponsorships elsewhere because it's totally allowed at that particular point. But Dunn's in the range where she can do that. You actually see some of the other big name college athletes able to cash in on this. Cooper Flagg, the phenom freshman at Duke for their men's basketball team, he's going to end up making more in NIL money this year than probably what his NBA rookie contract is going to be, because there's no doubt in anybody's mind that Flagg is going to jump to the NBA after this year, as great as he's playing. A lot of people are actually projecting he could be the number one pick in the draft, if not in the top three. But you also kind of have to feel for these teams that, yes, they lose a coach. Now they're going to be losing a bunch of those players who committed to be able to back this coach. Are some of these players from Marshall going to jump to Southern Miss to be able to play for Charles Huff? That remains to be seen. Thankfully, one of the players that did not opt out was their Football Writers Association of America second-team All-American Mike Green, who tied for the Division I lead in sacks with 17. He led the nation in tackles for loss at 22.5, and also of those 22.5 tackles for loss, 155 yards in total loss yardage. And Green is a redshirt sophomore, so he can't declare for the NFL draft until after next year. So he's not added his name to the list. Good for him. I'd like to see him come back, see what happens. From there, if he gets hurt and he actually has to opt earlier, it remains to be seen. But getting back to the 36 players who basically copped out at this point, now what actually happens? Now what do you have to say to the other 50 teammates who played an entire season, went 10-3, won your conference championship, won your conference regular season championship, and now cannot go to a neutral site game and play in a bowl against Army, who was who was one of the bigger stories in college football this season. So let me know what you guys think. Who's in the right here? Who's in the wrong? Do you side with Marshall? Do you side with the players? Where's the blame lie here? Who are you guys actually picking in the first round of the college football playoff? We all know a certain game in Columbus happening tomorrow night that it's going to pain me to say it, but you know who I'm going to be pulling for, because I'm not a fan of either one of those teams. But it's basically at that point the lesser of two evils. The Wise Guy Sports Show is off until January 19th. We hope everyone's going to have a safe and happy holiday season, and I will hopefully see you guys here before Christmas. But if not, everyone have yourself a safe and happy Christmas, happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah, and again, I will see you guys very, very soon in the next one. Take care.